I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Welcome back to the channel. This is Wes as usual, and I hope everyone is doing well. Today I'm going to review DC Comics Heroes in Crisis issue 6. I haven't really enjoyed this series at all to this point. I think Tom King's take on the DC universe is overall depressing and not to my taste. And that includes his Batman run as well. He really doesn't like heroic archetypes and seems to have a singular vision for all of them. They're all broken and miserable, in need of healing. That can work for a story arc or two, but the same drivel over and over is tiring and slowly eats away at the characters in my opinion. The one saving grace of the series has been the exceptional artwork of Clayman. However, the first thing you notice on the cover is Mitch Gerads gets top billing as the artist. Gerads is a fantastic artist in his own right, but it's off-putting that DC couldn't keep one primary artist on a 9-issue series. These days, creative continuity, specifically with artists, is killing reader ability to maintain interest in series. Marvel is the worst offender, but even DC can hardly keep an artist on a book for an entire story arc, let alone a prolonged series run. I understand the need for 2 primary artists on bi-weekly series, but for a monthly book like Heroes in Crisis, it really makes no sense. Nonetheless, Gerads' art here is excellent, as you would expect. There's not a ton of action, but when given the chance, he really brings the characters to life, and it's exciting to look at. Gerads and Tomu Mori are credited as colorists on the issue, so I'm assuming Mitch colored his own art. It's very vibrant and really makes you wish he were on a Titans relaunch with an older cast in the future. Wally West's feelings of isolation and emptiness is one of the 3 featured stories in the issue. Gerads does a wonderful job creating a void around the character on multiple pages to visually illustrate his inner turmoil to great effect. I find this image in particular to be very striking and probably my favorite piece of art in the book. Again, his color work is gorgeous, especially the silver lightning highlights on his Flash uniform. Overall, I'll rate the artwork a 4.5 out of 5. Clayman is credited with 2 pages of art in the book, both standard 9-panel, real-world style confessions that have been featured in every issue. These pages have easily been my least favorite piece of artwork throughout the series, and it's no different here. Hate is a pretty strong word, but it's apt here as these 9-panel layouts have been eye-rolling at best and nauseating at worst. Heroes in Crisis is the kind of series that makes me wish Alan Moore had never created Watchmen. Sure, it's a terrific book in its own right, but it's devolved comic writing to such a degree that its ultimate legacy will likely be a mixed bag. Think of the amount of deconstructed hero stories we've been inundated with as hack after hack tries to recreate Moore's lightning in a bottle, and it never works. These 9-panel layouts in every issue of Heroes in Crisis are a constant reminder that Tom King isn't capable of achieving a fraction of Alan Moore's greatness. While the artwork has been the saving grace of the series, King's characterization of iconic DC superheroes has been the albatross around its neck. He seems to have little respect for the characters or their history, eerily reminiscent of fellow DC writer Brian Michael Bendis. One of the 4 characters heavily featured in this issue is Narc. I'm not personally familiar with the prehistoric superhero who would become a Titan, and after this issue, I have no interest in the character. King ruins this beautiful piece of art with Narc reciting poetry. My assumption is this is on the Sanctuary holodeck, but it's still pretentious as all hell. I would read it to you, but I already had the misfortune of reading it to myself earlier. It's Tom King at his most self-indulgent worst, and unfortunately it doesn't get much better. Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy also get a healthy amount of character deconstruction in the book. You really have to feel bad for Gerads. I know they work together a lot, so he's likely King's biggest supporter, but he's probably still a comic book fan and has to know just how amazingly stupid this trail of word vomit looks. I'm not a follower of Harley or Ivy, so I'm assuming this is a heart-to-heart between the couple as they talk about how crazy they are and how they're supposed to be helping each other. I've thought for a while that King can't write heroes properly, but I've come to the conclusion he just can't write people properly. I'm sure at one time he was in top form, but I've never witnessed that personally, and nothing I've read inspires me to view his previous works. It's hard to pinpoint one DC superhero in Heroes in Crisis that's received the worst character treatment in the series. But in this issue, it's absolutely Wally West. In this scene, he's returning from some type of ceremony at Sanctuary, wearing a robe and holding one of the masks from the issue 1 cover. I'm not really sure if these masks have been present in other issues, as the most memorable thing about the series is that I wish I'd never started reading it. Nevertheless, he returns telling himself that he's not whole because his wife and children have been lost, and finally lays on the bed in the fetal position to wallow in his own sadness, alone. As I've previously stated, Tom King's deconstruction of DC superheroes and villains isn't my cup of tea, but even if it was, his character work here is truly awful, and I'll score it a 0.5 out of 5. If King's characterization of DC superheroes has been the albatross around the neck of Heroes in Crisis, the story itself has been the flaccid vessel to deliver its curse to the customers. Issue 6 is a bit odd in that it doesn't really progress the story at all. The series was originally supposed to be 7 issues, and issue 6 has a new artist, so I'm going to assume most of this is just added filler to expand the series count. It's comprised of 3 separate stories interweaved together. The first is the Ballad of Narc, as he uses the holodeck to reminisce about days gone by and wax poetic to his mammoth. He basically tells himself how much more fulfilled he was in his previous life and delivers his philosophy on the human condition. Of course, by the end he's dead and nothing is accomplished, so this really was a waste of 6 pages. Oh well, Narc, it's like I never knew you. The second story highlights one of the major issues with the idea of Sanctuary. Why would the Trinity sanction such a facility? Why are the characters being recorded only for the information to be deleted immediately? Why would heroes and villains be at the same rehab facility? There are so many whys to this story, and this issue adds another. Why would Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman create a secret facility with such shitty security? How the hell could Poison Ivy sneak her girlfriend Harley Quinn in, and how could it go unnoticed? Batman doesn't strike me as someone lacking in security and surveillance protocol, but nothing about Sanctuary makes sense, so there's no need dwelling on yet another plot hole. Ivy is helping Harley get over Joker by creating ever more obnoxious versions of him on the holodeck so she can slap him around and laugh at him. Real deep stuff, am I right? Whatever. The final story is Wally West and his inability to deal with his feelings of isolation and sadness due to the loss of his wife and kids. And I don't mean they're dead. If I remember correctly, they're actually lost in the Speed Force and can conceivably be found, but he's too busy being depressed at Sanctuary to look for them. He relives his return to the DC Universe in Rebirth through the lens of his current truth. He realizes he never felt whole the entire time. Not when his friends were so happy he returned from death, not when he rejoined the Titans, not ever. He's been a shell of himself the entire time, and I might be perceiving this incorrectly, but he's so sad that he broke Sanctuary, and his sadness released the death and destruction that consumed the facility. How exactly that happened is yet to be explained, but I'm certain it will be utterly depressing, keeping in the spirit of Heroes in Crisis and King's current writing style. These stories add virtually nothing to the overall plot of Heroes in Crisis, which I already hate, and there's really nothing of value in them. I'll score the plot in issue 6 a 0.5 out of 5 overall. Heroes in Crisis has consistently been a poorly written series with great art, but issue 6 really took the disparity to a new level. I would say the writing in this issue is amongst the worst I've ever read in any comic from any publisher. This isn't worthy of the DC logo and the quality it stands for. If you have a friend who's thinking about getting into comics, but you think they can't afford it, pass them a copy of Heroes in Crisis 6. Let them know it's written by one of DC Comics' premier creators. I'm confident they'll never visit the thought again. This issue is absolute pretentious trash wrapped in fantastic artwork. I rate it a 1.5 out of 5 overall, and would never recommend this to anyone who wasn't an absolute Mitch Gerads fanboy who could care less about the words or story. The superheroes of DC really are in crisis at the moment. If you look at the current direction of the Trinity of DC, which are really the backbone of the DC universe, it's all terrible right now. There's nothing good going on with Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. The characters are all being destroyed, and it feels like the execs at DC are complicit with it. They want the characters to be unrecognizable to the customers and fans that have been reading them for decades. I mean, think about Batman, the flagship right now of DC Comics, the highest selling series in all of comics, really, and they have Tom King on it. And what has he really brought to the character? He's a depressed shell of himself who thinks about poetry in every single issue. He doesn't have time to be the world's greatest detective anymore. He doesn't really go around saving people. He just mopes around being sad and having shitty storylines. When did Batman become stupid? It wasn't that long ago. Tom King wrote him to lay head to head in a church so Joker could shoot him in the head like a fucking idiot. That's not Batman. That's just plain stupid. No superhero would ever act like that. But depressed Batman would. And now he's having nightmares of being strung up in a meat locker while Professor Pig's strutting all around and stabbing him. Everyone knows Batman would destroy that character in a second. And of course, it ended up being a dream. And what's that going to lead to? Nothing. It's just another issue of Tom King dealing with his own personal demons rather than writing an actual Batman story. It's beyond frustrating to the fans of the character, and it just does a disservice to the DC universe as a whole. And I hate to break it to DC fanboys, but the numbers are going down on Batman. A year ago, every issue sold over 100,000. But ever since issue 50, the numbers are going progressively lower. I think it's under 90,000 now. And that's not even near as bad as what Brian Michael Bendis has done to Superman. In less than a year, he's turned him into an absolute cuck, ruined his marriage, stolen his child, sent him into space, aged him up to 17 so we can never witness Clark Kent, Superman, raising his son, ruining all the work Jurgensen and Tomasi put into the character in Superman, Action Comics, and Super Sons. And you think about it, you're like, well, Bendis is just a shitty writer. They shouldn't have put him on Superman. They put him on Superman for a reason. They put all of these shitty writers on all the best characters for a reason. Because DC Comics wants to destroy the characters. Because having a happy Superman with a healthy family somehow doesn't fit the DC brand anymore? Think about all the work that went into Rebirth to fix all the things that the New 52 did to destroy the DC universe, to undo it all, to right the ship at DC, and in 1 year, ever since Dark Knight's Metal, it's all been wiped out. Rebirth is dead, and we have this shitty DC universe that is dark and hopeless and depressing. And it all starts with the Trinity. Wonder Woman should be one of the hottest properties on DC Comics. She just starred in one of the most successful superhero films of all time, and definitely the best one the DCEU has created. So what do they do to follow up on the success of the film and the renewed interest in Wonder Woman? Put G. Willow Wilson on the character. A fanatical idealist that hates Western culture and values. I dare you to go on YouTube and listen to her speak. She thinks she's smarter than everyone else. You can definitely tell she fancies herself as some type of intellectual. But when you listen to her words, she's just a radicalized hate monger. Why would DC Comics bring this type of person with those type of views into the fold and then put them on their most important female character? Because Didio and the other execs at DC don't understand Wonder Woman, they don't appreciate her history, and they don't like the character, so they have to change her and put a crazy idealist on the book. It's terrible. It's ruining the series. It's helping to ruin DC Comics as a whole. And I'm sure if you've gotten to this point in the video, you know that I hate Heroes in Crisis, but it's only going to get worse, because Bendis is on the next big event, Leviathan. And we know that one's going to encompass all of Batman, Superman, and one of the better new characters, the Silencer. I personally don't think Tom King respects the characters or the history of DC, but he doesn't hold a candle to Bendis when it comes to those. Bendis could give two shits about the characters or the history. He'd change them to whatever he wants. Just because he's fucking Bendis. And he's going to. He's going to ruin Batman even worse than King has. He's going to continue to destroy Superman and everything about that series that was great. And now he's going to kill the Silencer, one of the better new characters. And who else do you think he's going to destroy with this big event that's going to last 6 months or more? By the end of Leviathan, I'll be shocked if there are more than 2 or 3 series that I still want to buy. So I was pretty hopeful when DC announced that they were doing their upcoming corporate restructure. I figured it was just the beginning and that they were going to make some wholesale changes within the creative structure of DC Comics as well, but it doesn't look like that's happening at all. If DC thinks that the issues in their comics division lie within the corporate structure, they're completely wrong. Those issues lie within the direction of the DC Universe from the execs and a few key creators with influence. If they want to do a meaningful restructure that can save the DC Universe, they have to fire Dan Didio. The man was the architect of the New 52. He only likes deconstructed superheroes, which isn't what DC is. Sure, they've done that in the past on side books or maybe a story arc or two, but it's never consumed the entire lineup, and when it did during the New 52, it basically destroyed the brand. It's heartbreaking to think about all the work Jeff Johns put into fixing the DC Universe with Rebirth, and for them to just give all that power back to Didio and let him destroy it all over again is the most frustrating thing in the world to experience. I hate it. Every month I know that I'm going to drop another DC book that's been destroyed recently. I've been hanging around on Nightwing because he's one of my favorite characters. I love Dick Grayson. But this past week, I've had enough. That was my final issue. I can't stick with that anymore. And why is that? Because Tom King had to shoot Dick Grayson in issue 55 of Batman, and Didio had to pounce on that as an opportunity to change him to Rick Grayson and give him fucking amnesia. And speaking of King, he's got to get removed from Batman. They cannot give him this whole 100 series run that he's been promised. The man's in an absolute creative rut. He can't write anything with Batman that's interesting anymore. It's just fucking poetry, thinking about how depressed he is. I am so tired of reading Batman's inner monologue. I had to give that book up as well. I gave that one up last month. Now, I understand they can't fire Bendis because they gave him a huge contract, but they've got to find him his own little corner of the DC Universe where he can create stuff and not destroy the existing characters in history. Let him create Jinx World exclusively. If he has to create something else in the DC Universe to justify his salary, let him stick with Wonder Comics. The only book in that series that's likely to have any kind of decent readership is Young Justice anyways. I hate to see it go down like that, but if that's the one series that needs to be sacrificed so Bendis can get away from the main issues at DC and not write any more goddamn events, I'm fine with it. Okay, Young Justice can die, and he can go create more space orgies in the Wonder Twins, or whatever weird shit he wants to do in the teen comics that aren't appropriate for teenagers in his teen comic lineup. I'm certain G. Willow Wilson definitely doesn't have any type of guarantee like Bendis or any kind of power like King yet, so she just needs to be fired outright. She doesn't need to be in DC, she never should have been hired, and she needs to be released immediately. And those are just the beginning. In order to restore faith in DC Comics brand, they need to remove the entire rot at the core of their brand. And that's all the depressing direction the entire line's going in. Get rid of all those writers. If they have exclusive contracts, put them on shitty stories that nobody reads anyways. There are plenty of great creators at DC that can right the ship immediately. You got Jeff Johns, Peter Tomasi, Dan Jurgens, Robert Venditti. The list goes on and on. There are great writers and great artists at DC Comics. Why they've let these select few dickheads get all this power and influence is beyond me. I'm basically going to pin it all on Dan Didio, but if Jim Lee's a part of it, fuck him too, and he needs to go. I hate to see that. I admire him personally. I think his art is terrific. He seems like a very nice guy. But if he's actually had any say in bringing any of these people in, or in the direction of the current DC Universe, he needs to go too, because then he's a part of the problem. That rant could go on for a long time, but I'm going to end it here, and that'll be the end of the video. Of course, these are just my takes. What's yours? Have you been enjoying Heroes in Crisis? Do you prefer the deconstructed hero stories so prevalent in DC today? Does there need to be wholesale changes at DC? Please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.